Welcome to We Don't Color on the Dog. We've got with us Levin Papantonio attorney Rachel Gilmer. Rachel, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pretty horrible lawsuit yesterday. Lawsuit's a lawsuit, but your client, I think every parent's nightmare is finding out that the school they're in isn't safe. And this is the story of a high school student who was sexually assaulted on campus. Tell us a little bit about it, because there are a lot of red flags in this that are really stunning to me.
Yeah, and Rick, you're exactly right. It is every parent's worst nightmare. I currently have two kids in high school, so it really hit home to me that you think when you send your kids out the door every morning to school that they're safe, that the faculty, the teachers, the administration are going to kind of step into the role of the parent and keep the kids safe while we're there. On this particular day in March of 2024 at Gulf Breeze High School, that didn't happen. And unfortunately, it appears that it was a series of events leading up to that day that allowed all of this to happen. And those series of events was just a lack of proper supervision, a lack of enforcement of policies and rules that allowed another student at the school to sexually assault my client.
It's horrifying. This were for our viewers and listeners was female athletes. They were excused from weight training class and allowed supposedly to have another type gym class in the gym, were unsupervised for a long period of time. Parents found out. They had some off and on supervision. The girl is asked, they don't have enough basketballs for them to play ball in this March day. They've been told to go into the boys' locker room, let them know that they're coming, to be sure no one's in there indecently exposed, and to go get some basketballs. And that's where she was assaulted by a high school athlete who seemed to be given the run of the school, and no one seemed to supervise it.
Yeah, and I think that's just it, Rick. The gentleman, I hate to even say gentleman, it's a young kid. The young boy who sexually assaulted my client was also a varsity athlete, like you said, and he had a known propensity to wander the school during class period. My client did have a 6-period gym class that essentially, with her other varsity basketball teammates, allowed them to get some extra practice time in. But like you said, not only was the class not regularly supervised, but when that was brought to the attention of the Gulf Breeze High administration, the parents were assured by administration at the school that somebody would be regularly overseeing and basically monitoring this class. That happened on a hit or miss basis. There was not consistent supervision. And on the date in question, there was an assistant coach in the gym. He had not gotten out sufficient basketballs for all the kids in the gym, including the girls' basketball team to practice with. And so there were open storage closets in the gym, but for whatever reason, the school was storing all the basketballs in the boys' locker room. So like you mentioned, the girls were told when you have to go to the locker room to get basketballs, you knock on the door, you announce yourself. But we're also told, look, no one should be in that locker room because it's class time and there's not the teammates, the players shouldn't be in there. So my client on this particular day did exactly what she was told. She went into the locker room. She knocked on the door first. She announced herself. She grabbed a basketball, and then around the corner in the locker room comes this young man. There was a hallway that separated the gym from the locker room, and the young man actually followed her into the hallway, which is where the assault actually occurred. But this young man had been regularly roaming the school during class time. He had been found in the gym multiple times when he wasn't supposed to be. And while he was instructed to leave the gym and go back to class, there was no real disciplinary measure. He was given detention a couple of times and just didn't show up to detention. No one suspended him. He didn't miss his varsity sports games for any type of punishment. So it just created an environment where I believe this young man felt that he was allowed to do what he wanted. The rules didn't apply to him. He was a little entitled to be able to hang out in the gym when he wanted to because of his star status, maybe as a varsity athlete with pending college offers. And you take that on top of there being an environment where you as a student know there's not a lot of supervision going on in that gym. And then a young lady who is has to go into a boys' locker room to get the equipment that she needs to participate in her class. It was a recipe for disaster.
Right. Dozens of red flags.
Dozens.
Yeah, I think the next step, though, that's even more disappointing, it's horrible that the incident happened. But then you would think that if it happened, that the side of the system would fall on to protect the victim and be sure the victim got the care, that her safety and her mental health and her physical health would be the priority. And based on the complaint, it doesn't look like that happened.
No, she was immediately made to feel like she was the one who had done something wrong. The school didn't even notify her parents initially. Matter of fact, they got a written statement from her before ever notifying the parents. This is she's at that time a sophomore in high school. 15 years old. Her mother found out after she sent her mother a text saying, basically, come up to the school. I've been assaulted. Her mother, of course, drops everything and rushes up there, has no idea what's going on. She called her daughter. Then that's when she found out there had been a sexual assault. At this point, still no communication from the school. The young man who at that point was being accused was never called out of class. He wasn't questioned. He returned to school the next day. Matter of fact, he was never suspended, expelled, even asked to temporarily leave the school during an investigation. This young lady, on the other hand, never returned as a student to Gulf Breeze High School. The only assurances the school would give the parents is they said that she had to return to school because of truancy laws. She had to return to school or enroll in some type of homeschool or virtual school program. And if she returned to school, what they could do was they would have the young lady and the young man both sign a piece of paper saying they would not have contact with each other. And that was the best the school could do. So, of course, the parents, after knowing what had happened to their daughter, had no faith and confidence that the school was going to be able to ensure that this young man did not come in contact or worse with their child again. So they had to enroll her in Florida virtual school in the end of March, which required her to start the semester completely over at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I'm not familiar with all the laws, but typically in these type of situations, when I've covered them in Escambia County, the school resource officer is brought immediately into the situation. If the accused and the accuser are interviewed by law enforcement, victims advocates should be called in. They're separated, and in often cases, both are suspended or get them both, off campus and separate. How did law enforcement get involved here, Rachel?
So the school never called law enforcement. They did have the on-campus resource officer. He was immediately involved. I believe that's even who got the statement from my client. But when my client's mother got to the school, that's what she asked is, are the police on the way? What's going on? And the school said they had not contacted the police. So the mother at that point contacted the police, filed a police report, at which point the police came to the school after that. At that point, school had then been dismissed for the day. So the young man was no longer even on campus, or at least not in regular class.
Mm-hmm.
And a criminal proceeding or investigation began from there. But again, all at the prompting of my client's parents.
So where are we now? The case you filed, you tried, what's the next phases here?
Yes, you're required anytime you sue a governmental agency in Florida to put them on notice, and there's a waiting period. So we filed what's called an administrative notice claim back in, I believe, October of last year, of 2024. We had to wait out the notice period. During that time period, the school board, which is technically who is the governing body that you file the claim against. It's not the actual high school. It's the school board who regulates the high school. So during that period of time, the school board had the ability to contact us to try to resolve the claim. If they do not do that, if they do not resolve the claim during that notice period, then legally you're allowed to bring a lawsuit. So they did not make any attempt to reach out or contact us during that period, which is not uncommon. It's really not, unfortunately. that period is set there to hopefully resolve issues just like this so lawsuits aren't brought,
Right.
and so that you don't have to go drag everybody through a court proceeding. But that did not happen. And so we then filed a lawsuit. Technically, we filed the lawsuit last week. We filed our amended complaint that just gave more specific details about what happened this morning. And we're proceeding forward from here, waiting for the ball's now in the court of the school board and their attorneys as to how they'll respond to our complaint.
I know you've handled a lot of tough cases. This one being so close to home. I mean, my girls went to Gulf Breeze High School. It really it upsets me so much. I think any parent it would.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I know I have friends whose kids are at Gulf Breeze High School, and I just think, I don't know what's happened. I really don't. I don't know how we've gotten to this point, because Gulf Breeze, all the schools in Santa Rosa County, I mean, they have student codes of conduct, they have standards of care, policies and procedures. Those are all proper and in place. The problem is they're not being followed, they're not being enforced. So it's not like there's no policy that we're not trying to get a policy change. They've got the proper policies, but a policy is no good if you don't enforce it. And you can't have different rules for different kids. People can't get special treatment because of things just like this. It creates an environment where then the student feels the rules don't apply to me, so I don't have to follow the rules. And that's exactly what's happened here, is when you don't have adequate supervision, especially in a gymnasium type setting. You got kids playing, goofing off, and you don't have enough supervision, and you don't have consistent supervision. And then you have other kids who know that the rules are not enforced against them. And then you have a young lady who has to go into a male-dominated locker room to get the necessary equipment, and you've set it up for a disaster to occur, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, Rachel, I'm glad you're on it. Please keep me in the loop as things develop, and thank y'all for sharing it with me.
Thanks,
Not
Rick.
one of the kind of stories I enjoyed doing, but I think it's one that we need to be aware of it, and we need to be looking at the rules being followed. I think that's
Absolutely.
a big part of it. Have a good day, Rachel. Thank you.